With us now, ahead of that imminent sentencing, is former Metropolitan Police Detective Peter Bleksley. So, tell us a little bit more about what went on here, how he was caught.
Well, the good news is, and there's a lesson for many here, is that King's capture was largely brought about by the PREVENT programme, which has come in for a lot of criticism over the years, and also by somebody contacting the counter-terrorism hotline.
So a tip-off.
So it's members of the public.
So they saw him, he thought he looked suspicious, we're going to call the police.
Whatever their concerns were, they did the right thing. They picked up the phone and they reported those suspicions.
But then you might say, gosh, that's really lucky that that's how we found him. It wasn't sort of super intelligence by the police. It wasn't CCTV. It wasn't face recognition technology. It was a tip-off.
Well, there's a lot of very clever and intensive investigative work that was done as a result of that. So there was CCTV images seized, and of course his home was searched, and his internet history was obtained. And that showed very, very clear evidence that he intended to travel to Syria to join Islamic State, that he was willing to fight alongside Islamic State combatants, also that he'd done a lot of preparatory work and purchased things like a knife, goggles, gloves, and done reconnaissance on Stratford Police Station in particular and military premises, and he expressed a clear desire to murder or maim members of the police service or the military personnel.
And as you can see on the screen there, we are waiting for this sentencing, which is going to happen imminently. We will bring it to you outside the court case there.
I just wondered, Peter, how reliant are the authorities on the public tipping people off? Are they largely, is that what how these things largely come to light, or would this be an exception?
In 1829, when Sir Robert Peel established the Metropolitan Police, he said the public are the police and the police are the public. And that holds as strong today as it did way back then. Cooperation from the public is absolutely crucial to policing.
And that's why we can't lose trust in the police. That's why we've got to be careful that we all do view the police in the high status they should have. Now, what I'm interested in, he's only 19, this chap, King. How are we allowing people like that to be recruited into wanting to blow up their own country? The hatred there.
Well, the internet, in short, is really the answer, because you can find just about anything online if you know how to look for it and where to look for it. And this man's radicalisation, I'm sure, was largely dictated by absorbing such information and all of that brainwashing from the internet. That's what inspired him. That's what made him sympathetic and wanting to join Islamic State and led him down the path, which means today he's at the Old Bailey.
So do you do profiling? I mean, is he a loner? Has he got no friends? Is this about sort of retaliation for all the things that he hasn't enjoyed through life?
We may hear more of that today when he's sentenced, but certainly it appears that he was operating as a lone wolf. I'm sure viewers and listeners are very much familiar with that expression. But whilst he may have acted alone, of course, he wasn't, strictly speaking, because he was connecting with people on the internet and he was posting messages on WhatsApp, and his intent was very clear. So either he's absorbing information from some and he's also pumping it out for the benefit of others.
Oh, go on, Phil.
I just wanted to go back to what you said earlier on, Peter, that he'd been caught partly through the PREVENT programme. I just wondered what your view was of that, because it has come in for a lot of criticism that it doesn't actually do good. In fact, some people say it does more harm than good. And obviously lots of radicalisation takes place in prisons. That's one of the big concerns that the authorities have. I mean, how worried generally are we about sort of how prisons operate for radicalisation? But, I mean, do you think the PREVENT programme is a success or a failure?
It's a programme that has come in for a lot of quite justified criticism over the years, and certain minority communities have felt marginalised and almost picked on by it. But it's been in place for a long time now, and it's been refined and it's been reformed, and it's better than it certainly was in the first instance, and it's something that is very, very necessary, because as today's events clearly show us, there are people out there willing to do us all harm.
Right, and there's some who'll talk about it, and there's some who'll brag about it, and there's some who will do it. And I guess it's how do you separate out the fantasists, as it were, as the people who are going to do it? Because at an earlier hearing, the prosecutor had said no specific act of terrorism had been identified. So how do you do that? How do you separate the fantasist to the real terrorist?
Well, clearly, after his premises were searched, the knife and the goggles and the gloves and all the internet searching and all that clear evidence of radicalisation had been gathered, it was clear this man was very, very dangerous. We have, and we come back to the trust word again, which you mentioned earlier, with regards to radicalisation and suspicions that the public might have about people, we've got to trust our authorities to do the right thing. So if you have concerns, do report them and trust the police to establish whether this is a person who needs to be arrested or whether in fact it is not the case.
But you know yourself, you say people pose outside of police stations to have themselves on video to post on TikTok because they want to be, as it were, there at the scene of a crime.
Yes, there's this sort of band of people that call themselves auditors. I've got quite a few other words for them, but I won't use them on air. And they actually are almost trying to provoke the police. They go to the rear yards of police stations. They film themselves. They're quite open about it. And some actually are deliberately trying to provoke the police into arresting them. It's a very strange, senseless, numbskull kind of hobby or activity to engage in, and our police have got a difficult enough job, so kindly stop.
Just very quickly, Peter, if you can. I mean, how important is it that we clamp down on terrorism as opposed to the argument in favour of civil liberties? There's big debate that we can be too draconian, that everything's about, you know, convictions for terrorism offences, and within that we sort of capture in and we forsake our civil liberties, and in that sense people argue the terrorists have won because we're giving up our civil liberties to is the balance in the right place? Do you think we're not tough enough? Do you think we're too tough? Where do you think the balance is in that debate between clamping down on terrorism and protecting our civil liberties?
There is, of course, a balance to be struck, and I think by and large our security services and our police do a very good job in terms of identifying those who are a threat, arresting them and putting them in front of the courts. You know, with rights comes responsibilities. We all enjoy the rights that we have in this country, in this great flagship democracy. There is also responsibilities that fall upon us, and I personally am willing to sacrifice some of those rights as a responsibility in order that law enforcement can go about their job and take people off the streets who want to wipe you, Esther, me and all the viewers and listeners off the face of the earth.